All right. So my name is Matthew Perkins. I am the Urban and Community Forestry Program Manager for Idaho Department of Lands. I am very pleased to have been invited to come and present to you guys today. So we've been working very closely with our Forest Health Department to start coming up with a plan to monitor and detect possible emerald ash borer infestations in Idaho. So an interesting fact is that Idaho State Department of Agriculture has actually come out and expressed that they don't have any plans to participate in putting any quarantines or kind of taking any serious actions for emerald ash borer in Idaho because they have their hands full with other invasive pests that actually affect agricultural crops and whatnot. And the emerald ash borer is not significant towards agricultural crops like the Japanese beetle or say quagga mussel or whatnot. So with that being said, it's been left up to each of the communities in the state to come up with their own plans, basically. So we've jumped in and started kind of developing a plan for starting to monitor and look for this pest throughout the state and come up with a plan of action. And that's what I will present to you here. Let's see, I'm not getting response from my program. There we go. Okay, so one of the first things that Forest Health did is they created this very handy ID-sized pocket guide for IDing all of the symptoms that are associated with emerald ash borer. And we have this QR code here that you can scan with your phone, and it will take you to our reporting site where you can start kind of practicing. I encourage everyone who has one of these cards and puts it to use, which, by the way, I'd be happy to make available to you if you reach out to me. And you can then start practicing using our reporting site to, even if you're not finding emerald ash borer, it would be a good idea to start practicing, and we still want to know if trees have been looked at and nothing has been discovered, okay? So one of the unique things about this pocket guide here is you'll see the arrow pointing to a die cut hole that is in the card that is practically the actual size. It's very, very close to the actual size of the exit holes that the emerald ash borer will make. So one of the things that we need to consider here is that we have a native ash pest called the lilac ash borer. Potazesia syringae, I believe, is the Latin name. And they do a lot of damage already to our trees throughout across the state, and the damage that they inflict upon those trees often sometimes mimics or shows the same symptoms that you'll see from emerald ash borer. So we get a lot of interaction with our arborists who are concerned about emerald ash borer, and they report it, and we go and check those trees, and they end up being lilac ash borer. But we still want to hear about those. So that's the nice thing about this die cut hole is, as you can see, we have here one of our cooperators took the card with him to, I believe it was St. Louis, Missouri this year, where he attended some sessions there, and he took some pictures and shared them with me of the actual exit holes on an infested tree or previously infested tree and how they measured up to our card there. So it seems like it's going to work pretty good. And next slide. All right, so when you scan that QR code on the card, it will take you to one of these two places. Now, we've set up a Linktree site where you can get all the information that you need about the emerald ash borer and the efforts that we are working on here in Idaho. So we have information on EAB and then branch sampling instructions, which the branch sampling method, which I'll talk about here in a minute, is one of the methods that we are pushing forward for helping us to detect and monitor that pest in our state. And then it'll take you right to the reporting portal and other national emerald ash borer information and other contacts, okay? And then we also have a link that will take you to the full instructions for doing branch sampling. All right, so the next thing that we did was we put together, since it's every community for themselves, basically, we needed to have some sort of template for communities to put together their own preparedness plan. So what we did was we put together this template. It ended up having to be put in Word format, so it is fully editable. And the way it's supposed to work is it has all the information that a community will need to start their own preparedness plan and be ahead of that curve for when it does show up in their communities. And they just have to plug in their local information of that. And I'd like to note that, this is just version 1.0 so far. It's still under configuration. We will be updating it as we progress, and I would love to hear everyone's feedback on that. I encourage you to go visit the site and download the document, use it for your own communities and your own programs, and share your feedback with us on how we can make this document better and work better, okay? So just to look inside the table of contents of that document, it shows how to use the template. It covers the biology and life cycle of EAB, the identification, the detection methods, monitoring, speaking of branch sampling, which I'm going to cover here in a second, what to do when you do find that, as far as the different kind of ways that you can develop an incident command system and start doing investigations on your own, and then reporting on it, and then what to do when you do find it as far as treatments. And we even have like a little sample EAB inspection form that you can print out and use to go, when you get called about a possible infestation, you can go and look at the tree, and it tells you all the things to look at while you're inspecting so that you don't forget. All right, so the most recent action that we have taken is we've been trying to encourage arborists and tree services and municipalities everywhere across the state, like I said, to start practicing using that reporting portal, right? Well, there hasn't been a whole lot of participation in that yet, but we keep pushing it and encouraging people to start using that. So we took it upon ourselves to start initiating a branch sampling program of our own. So what we did was we took the statewide tree inventory. We use tree plotter inventory. It's one of the services we provide to our communities. And we've exported the data from those tree inventories and massaged it into ArcGIS, Survey 123, and kind of filtered out trees that we thought were higher priority or lesser priority, and went even further into it and divided each of those areas where those ash trees are located into square miles. And so for each of those communities, for each square mile, we are sampling 2 trees from each square mile, and we're taking 2 samples from each tree. And then we're going to take them back to a shop and whittle them away, which I will show you the process in the next slide. And so the thing is that the way this program works is for each tree that gets sampled, we can then enter the information about that tree, and it gets uploaded back into a public-facing portal, which then you can go and look and see which trees have been sampled and where and what the status is. So speaking of the branch sampling mechanism, the whole idea behind that is that it can be done at any time throughout the year. Obviously, it's best to be doing it towards the fall, maybe into the spring, but arborists can be doing this at any time they're working. The idea is you take 2 samples or a sample from a tree preferably on the southwest side of the tree, up in the upper 2/3 of the crown. You remove those branches and just save this lower 30 inches of the branch, and then the rest of it can just be chucked through the chipper. And then you take those branch samples back to your shop and whittle them with either a saw or a buck knife, or a draw knife works really nice. And the idea is, while you're whittling through this wood, is that you're going to be looking for the signs or the presence of emerald ash borer larvae or pupae, or previous infestations from their frass there. All right. So one of the important things that you need to keep in mind when you're doing branch sampling is it's not going to do you any good if you go and take a bunch of samples from somewhere and you whittle through them and then you find emerald ash borer, but you can't remember where you got those tree samples from. So we also created these labels that in our first batch, we connected them to a zip tie, but that was not cost effective. So now we just do the labels, and we encourage everyone to carry their own zip ties. But the fact is that if you take a sample, so carry these around in your fleet vehicles with you, and take your samples, attach a label, put the address on there so you remember where that tree was taken from, scan the QR code, go to the reporting site, and report what you find. So as I said, the Idaho State Department of Agriculture is not currently planning for any control measures for emerald ash borer. So the state is going to use some of our bipartisan infrastructure law funds to develop a statewide strategic plan. And again, I would encourage each of you to please go and check out that template, try using it, and send your feedback to me on how we can make that better and more user-friendly. That's all I have for you. And next speaker will be Craig Lingen from North Dakota, and he will speak to you about their programs there. So thank you for your time, and I look forward to your feedback.